And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin. Today joined by somebody who I go way back with, somebody who was at the arena last night, somebody who I'm sure everybody will just be thrilled to hear his voice and his takes, especially regarding Anthony Davis. Matt Moore of the Action Network. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
You know, I was doing a little bit better before last night. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That was um I don't know if I would go so far as call it discouraging, because I just think Denver is still the better team, especially like that first unit is going to be pretty damn unstoppable this year. But then, um, I think the part of it that was tough to swallow was it was so much positivity all preseason, and then wham, like directly to the nether regions last night.
I mean, look, the thing is, you can be really optimistic about the season for the Lakers, because they're not going to play Denver every night. They're going to play teams where D'Angelo Russell is a viable option to play in games. They're going to play teams where Cam Reddish can be a positive. His defense was good last night. They're going to play a lot of teams featuring undersized squads or teams that play terrible pick and roll defense. And Anthony Davis is going to look like an MVP candidate, and it's going to feel really good. Like when AD drops another 55 on the Washington Wizards, it's going to feel awesome. Like it's okay. Like you were in Denver facing the defending champions and a very specific defending champion. There are champions that are like, whew, we did it. Okay, that's done. Like that's the Mavericks in 2011.
Yeah.
Or you face teams that are like, we're exhausted and we're just trying to survive until April. And that's like the 2018
20
19
Lakers.
Warriors,
Or
right?
the 21 Lakers.
Yeah, 21 Lakers. The Nuggets are in a very different spot where they are of the mindset of make hay while the sun is high. That this is their window, this is their time, that while everybody else is like, we added this guy and we added this guy and we got this guy, the Nuggets are like, we know how to play together. Like we know how to play well together. And that combination makes them really difficult. They played exceptionally well last night. Not exceptionally well relative to their standard is what they played.
Yeah.
You had some bad breaks go against you in terms of, I think Darvin wanted to test drive the bench lineup and quickly discovered like, oh, this is not going to work. Some promising things. The resiliency I thought was really good to get back in the game. Like they were really resilient last night. When it was 16, it could have gotten out of hand, and that team hung together and played the right way. The body language was really good from everybody except Anthony Davis, I thought, on the floor. They really focused in and played really hard and stuck with it like professionals do. The Lakers are going to be a good team. It was just a bad spot and a good indication that, like, look, they haven't, I don't think they've shortened the gap. They've got 6 months to figure out how to do that, or for more importantly, for Denver maybe to come back towards them. And that doesn't mean it can't happen. Like what is now is not what will always be with the Lakers, with the Nuggets, or with Anthony Davis.
I thought the coaching in last night's game was really interesting, especially like going back and rewatching some of it. The number one question I had going into this, and I think the only real question about the Denver Nuggets this year is that bench, right? And yeah, Bruce Brown was probably made to look better than he actually is by Nikola Jokic. That's like how it usually goes with somebody like Jokic, who's that talented a distributor offensively. And Jeff Green is pretty replacement level. So, but he is still like a vet who came off of their bench. And then you look at their bench this year, it's Strouthers, it's Watson, it's Christian Brown. It is, and Brown is a little bit more proven than those guys, obviously, because he would what he did in the playoffs. But if there is a spot, if there is a scab that you can maybe pick on the Nuggets, it was that group of guys coming off of the bench. But I thought Malone, and I think this is kind of the difference in his approach to this game and comparison to Ham's, was Malone knew going in, like he coached, he was like, all right, we are going to always have one starter on the floor with those guys. Murray is going to basically anchor that lineup when we make a couple of those subs. I don't think there were any minutes where either Jokic or Murray were off of the court. And if there were, they were very few and far between. The Lakers, however, did have some minutes where LeBron and AD were both off of the bench. The Lakers did only play LeBron James, I think 29 or 30 minutes or something like that. And like you said, Ham did try out a bench lineup that, I frankly, those minutes, I think, wound up being kind of the difference in the game, because from that point on, the Lakers were playing catch up. So like I thought that, and it doesn't surprise me, to the point that you made earlier. It doesn't surprise me that Malone would walk into that one and be like, no. There won't be. He also knows his team. He knows that they are very capable of kind of letting down, and they did in that game, right? He knows that he called that early timeout early in the third, the angry timeout that he always calls when the Nuggets kind of fuck around after they realize they're better than another team. And I thought that that was kind of interesting, that kind of juxtaposition. And I'm not saying that to make it sound as if like the Lakers didn't want it or wanted it any less or anything like that was a factor. I just think that one coach knows exactly what, which pitch to throw when they absolutely have to throw it. I think Ham is still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. And like, look, part of this is a schedule quirk too. The Nuggets have off Wednesday and Thursday and then play Friday in Memphis for the first away game. So first game of the season with a 2-day break after. So he could afford to run Jokic for 36 minutes, KCP for 36 minutes, Jamal for 34, AG for 35. Those won't be the standards of the season. Like they want to get them down to 32, 33.
Yeah.
So like they'll play them a little bit less. And I think I understand why Ham kind of wanted to try out the lineup that he did. Like, honestly, one of my things though is even when he did the stagger, he tried I'm just very big on, I think the LeBron, Austin Reaves, Christian Wood lineups will be really good. And instead they tried to do the AD is going to anchor the second unit. And then he lost those minutes. And like you kind of mentioned, like, why I kind of think those minutes without AD or LeBron, I got to call you out here, bud. AD was minus 17 in this game. Like you lost the minutes because AD got his ass kicked up and down the floor again. Like that's why they lost that game. The promise, I think in the second half, though, I really liked the two big lineup with AD and Christian Wood that they used in the second half. And that's a lineup that it won't work all the time. There will be lineups that will torch it based off of their ability to space the floor. But when they deployed it and how it looks, I actually was like, ooh, I kind of really like this. I didn't understand staggering DLo with the second unit. Like, stagger Reaves. Like, you have Reaves, who's really good, especially when he's not playing against the Nuggets starters who make him look like a little boy. Like he literally looked like a little boy last night. And even he started he picked up that he got the tech called on KCP after the play before. He was like whining to the official, like literally like, come on. Like I saw him do that on the side.
Well, in fairness, he got duplexed and then Aaron Gordon was allowed to hang on the rim.
Anthony, like your team won a title of being the biggest bullies in the league. You were the big guys. And now you're all little again.
They're bigger now than they were last year, in fairness.
And that's good. Like
it was funny. They did the Willy Wonka commercial, like in between it, like at some point in the game. And I was trying to go and grab the picture that was all the Oompa Loompas. And I was like, is this a new picture that is coming out this fall? Or is that last year's guard rotation of the Los Angeles Lakers?
Yeah. But Reaves, to me, you have to play Reaves at point guard. Like he's got to be point guard.
Yeah.
And look, DLo, again, just like AD, DLo's going to have games where he scores 35 versus the Hornets. He's going to have games where he scores 29 and dishes 8 assists versus the Rockets. And he played really well. Like that's going to happen. But I will say I was against them re-signing him for this exact reason. What is the point of re-signing DLo to the deal that you re-signed him to if he is unplayable versus the number one team that you have to put on your interest list? I don't think you should build rosters to beat one specific team because you don't even know if you're going to play him in the playoffs. The Nuggets might get bounced by Minnesota or OKC or or Phoenix, and you won't even face the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs. But it's concerning to me that DLo is just like, I like DLo from the beginning, and I think that he's had good years and bad years, but like he is unplayable versus the Nuggets, and that's pretty evident at this point.
Yeah, KCP really gave him problems. KCP, because I think Russell benefits from being 6'5", and most of the guys who guard him are going to be closer to like 6'1", 6'2". And KCP is like a legit 6'5" with really good foot speed, and I miss him and come back. But all that stuff aside, so here's my theory on, and we even saw it, I think, with Reddish too, because I do think that the Lakers organizationally understand this isn't the team that is going to finish the year. These aren't the guys that are going to, play significant roles in the postseason by the time they get there.
Right.
And I do kind of think, because it was a lot, and I did have some people pointing out that the usage rate between Reaves and D'Angelo Russell was similar. I think it was 18% and 20%, one way or the other. I still think, though, that like it should swing more heavy towards like 22 to 24% for Reaves and like 16 or so to 14 or so for Russell. Like you're talking about, and heading into this offseason, I wanted Reaves to be considered a point guard so that you can have a KCP type next to him, who at one point I thought might be Bruce Brown, but then he signed for a lot more money in Indiana. In this case, though, with Russell, and I think we saw a version of this with Reddish, I think the Lakers are basically like, with both of those guys, kind of saying, all right, show us what this looks like under these kinds of circumstances, and we will use that as data points when the time comes to make a decision about you guys moving forward. And I do think, I think I was a little too hard on Russell last night. I didn't give him enough credit for competing defensively, even though I really didn't like what he did offensively. But Matt, I am telling you,
try-hard stuff, man. He was doing try-hard stuff.
He wasn't even doing that in the postseason last year.
Yeah, but like, this is the whole thing is I'm begging you, I'm trying to reset expectations with the Lakers where you shouldn't, if you want to be a serious title contender, I don't think it's good to be like, oh, hey, like you really fake tried.
Well, again, extremely low bar here with him, especially. We didn't see even like the like put a hand up kind of a thing.
Look, he had a better defensive
last night.
Hey, look, he had a better defensive rating than Anthony Davis when he was on the floor. So
well, and we'll talk about AD here in a bit, because you are, I think, harder on AD than any person on on the internet.
Yes.
Other than maybe myself, according to Lakers Twitter. but the last kind of thing I wanted to say about Russell and about this matchup, especially as it pertains to these teams moving forward, is like there was no alternative to signing D'Angelo Russell. Like,
I know.
If you don't sign him, you don't get back anything close to that kind of talent to fill in that spot. And also, like, the deal that they signed him to is a 32-year, $36 million or $34 million deal. That's perfectly fine. Like, that's movable.
But again, it's like, it's perfectly fine if you're the Bulls and you're just like, hey, we just want to like make the playoffs.
No, I actually think not signing him would have been the kind of
I get
Bulls would have made. They would have been like, wait,
yeah,
how much would he cost in our luxury taxes?
Yeah, I get it. No. Personally, I would have probably, like, there was a little bit of interest in sign and trade stuff. So I probably would have tried to work that out. I would have moved him last. I wouldn't have traded for him. And I mean, I get it was part of like they took Russell to get rid of Russ, and that's a net win, I think it's fine. You're right that the contract is fine. They needed to keep him. Both those things are true. Like, you're absolutely right that both those things are true. Like, losing him for nothing, you lose the ability to trade him later, potentially for something good. And there's like, we see this with all these extensions. It's really funny. About half of the guys that got extensions, the rookie guys, are guys that I had heard those teams had shopped because they didn't want to pay them. But then they couldn't find a deal that they liked. So they're like, well, we have to give them this money now so that we can trade them later.
Mhm.
And that's just the reality of where the CBA is. I think it's unfortunate. I think some of it's a little short-sighted
Yeah.
in terms of some stuff, but I get it. I do think that like, it's just kind of funny because you think you're too hard on DLo. I think you're too hard on Gabe, who I think is gonna be fine. Like bad matchup. Gabe's running with a bad bench unit. Had a bad game. Gabe's gonna be fine. Like Gabe's a
I
competent
pretty
player.
much said he was going to be fine though. Like I said that he looked exactly like I expected him to look, seeing as he didn't play at all in the preseason. Like we
Yeah.
didn't see him at
Yeah.
all. So I'm not too worried about Gabe moving forward. And frankly, like even as it pertains to D'Angelo Russell, I'm not all that worried because I think eventually he's going to be moved. Either he or Rui, I think, are probably going to be moved
And look,
at
I
some
thought
point this season.
I thought Cam's defense was really good last night.
Mhm.
Um, he he took one shot that was unfortunate, but in general, I thought like he was fine
Yeah,
in terms
thought so.
of what he gave, and I thought Christian Wood was actually really good. Like
Mhm.
Christian Wood was really good in his minutes, and I will say this is kind of the pattern with Christian Wood, where it's like it starts off really well, and then by January, it's like everyone hates him. The coaching staff wants to fire him into the sun, and they can't wait to get rid of
Yeah,
him. Like it's just
yeah.
that's the reality of. But
But that's why he's on a minimum.
yeah, and also Christian's like not the Lakers did not sign Christian Wood to play heavy minutes in the playoffs. I get it.
Yeah.
And then like no Vando, so you couldn't even match because of that physicality, even though Vando was largely unplayable in the Nuggets series last year. So like it's a tough spot. Your general take of things were not as bad as they seem, I think is probably pretty fair, right? Because it's just like I don't walk out of that game and be like, oh man, the Lakers are gonna be bad this year.
Yeah.
I haven't. So as an example, like I have to upgrade power ratings for betting as the season goes along, and I won't do it after every game. You know, I upgraded the Nuggets a half point last night because I was just like, okay, the Reggie Jackson stagger minutes are going to be better than I thought they were.
Mhm.
They probably are. So I'm bumping them up a half point. The bench is going to be bad, but I knew it was going to be bad. It's not worse than I expected. Gave him a half point bump. I didn't adjust the Lakers at all. I still have them exactly where I had them, which is pretty high in the West,
Mhm.
like as a playoff team. So I didn't adjust them down based off of this performance. And I don't know how you can because, and like this is your comment, and I think you deserve credit for saying like the Nuggets are the better team. The Nuggets are better right now. The Nuggets are a great team. You said
Yeah.
that. Jason Timpf said that. Locked On Lakers said that. Like the reaction from Lakers folks was what it should be, which is it's a little bit of a disconnect in terms of we're just so historically used to the Lakers are up here with a couple of teams, and then like teams like the Nuggets are down here. And like we
Mhm.
just are in a different era where the Nuggets are up here and the Lakers are like here. And that's okay. And if the Lakers will try and find both a combination of improvement and opportunity to be in a place to get past or further than Denver once the playoffs come.
Yeah, so last night I bet the Lakers money line thinking that the Nuggets might kind of sleepwalk after the big ceremony and
Lakers were
all of that stuff.
motivated. They had conversations about it.
I yeah, I charted all of those conversations. They were, enthralling.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the reason that I bet on them was thinking that, if you are going to catch the Nuggets, it would be in kind of a spot like this where the bench is so not ready for that it doesn't matter. But like the part of it that I'm kind of kicking myself for in making that bet is that Mike Malone wasn't going to coach to like just treat that as any other game, and he was going to extend those minutes if he absolutely could, and he did. And I thought the Nuggets are going to look incredible in games like that, which extends into my expectations for them this year, which is they're the best team in the world right now, so long as those five
Yeah.
guys can play those important minutes. Period. Um, you mentioned betting on the Lakers and stuff, and we will get, or your outlook on the Lakers here moving forward. And I promise we will get to that. But I do. You said before we went live here that you're working on an AD thing. You do like to give AD a hard time. He did disappear in the second half after talking about how he heard all the mess that the Nuggets were talking. He looked like he got bullied quite a bit by Nikola Jokic when the Lakers had him on an island to try to defend him. I thought that was something that the Lakers were doing on purpose. Um, make Jokic more of a scorer and try to take away the amount of open shooting from the rest of the team. The problem was that Jokic was like perfectly fine to just keep scoring on Anthony Davis. And so eventually the Lakers like had to send extra help and make that adjustment over the course of the game. But yeah, I said coming into the season that, and again, I feel like I took a little too much heat for saying it, because when I say it out loud, it shouldn't be this shocking. But I don't think a 39-year-old LeBron James can be the best player on a championship team. That shouldn't be groundbreaking to anybody. And if this is the makeup of the Lakers, and especially now that we're finding out that Darvin Ham is going to be playing LeBron, 30 minutes and below, then AD has to be consistently special on both sides of the ball. And I know that Lakers fans, and other people covering this team, I am really good friends with Harrison and Pete. And a lot of the people who cover this team will say, well, AD is that kind of special on the defensive side of it. And you have to make up for that on the offensive side. And it's like, well, but that's not what great players are, though, right? Like great players in the stratosphere where AD sits, right? Top 75, I think he made that list, and where we're talking about him as a MVP candidate this year and stuff like that. Those guys defend their asses off, and they don't disappear the way that he did in the second half there. And yeah, I think Jokic is the worst matchup possible for him because of how physical he is. But at some point, man, we got to stop making excuses when this guy just we can't keep doing it.
The difference here, and this is how it is with all players. These are all the best players in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis is an amazing basketball player. So I'm not out here being like, he's mid. Like, come on, it's Anthony Davis, right? What I fight against is conversation, because I'm in it a lot. Like, that's where I live. That's where I operate. I think about the game constantly all the time. And I'm in these conversations and I see these other views and the consensus ideas. And if they're wildly off, that's where I will really bear down. And that's the biggest thing, is that I am trying very hard to get us to collectively, we have to reset expectations and conversational place on Anthony Davis. He's not that guy. It's fine that he's the special defensive talent when he's facing smaller lineups. He's amazing. Like, he can switch. He can block lots of shots on smaller guys. He's incredible. Like, he is.
What he did to Golden State, what he did to Memphis was staggering.
When Memphis was without their starting center and their backup power forward, he was incredible. Oh, but what about Jaren Jackson? If you go back, like, their matchup, they didn't actually match up that much. Just want to say that. My point here, though, is if we talk about Anthony Davis as, is Anthony Davis the best defensive player of all time? Is Anthony Davis the best defender in the NBA? If he's that level at the spot he plays, he needs to make an impact on the best player in the world. Doesn't have to win the matchup. Has to have it where I watch it and I go, man, AD is really battling and Jokic is having a hard time. Because I said that about Rudy Gobert. I've said that about Karl Anthony Towns. I've said that about Wendell Carter Jr. I've said that about other defenders who I have a lot of respect for. You know who I haven't said that about in the last couple of years? Anthony Davis, who he moves through like water. AD was, here's the biggest thing. He's bigger and more physical than AD. He's also, Tiff did a good breakdown of this. He's also beats him up the floor constantly. Yeah. He's out chugging him too. He outworks him. He outplays him. If you do everything you can and Jokic just hits his floaters and the stuff that he does because he's the best player in the world, I will notice that. And I'll be like, AD did everything he could there. There's nothing more he can do. But that's not how it is. He is the best in the world when he's in a favorable matchup, but you're not always going to be in them. And so that defensive side to me falls apart a little bit. I'm also, not for nothing, but also, like, I can point out a lot of plays where he gets beat in containment, especially when he's playing 2-on ball. His containment on the perimeter is not what it's made out to be. Incredible weak side shot blocker. Good for him. Offensively, when you talk about the stuff that you have, you're absolutely right. Like, LeBron has tried to put this out there how many years in a row?
Every year.
AD's got to be our MVP. AD's got to be. He said in the preseason, AD's the face of the franchise. If you are the face of the Lakers franchise and you have said, I'm looking forward to this matchup. We heard all the talk, yada, yada, yada. You can't go scoreless in the second half.
Yeah.
Like the jumper, he hit 1-3 and it looked good, but it wasn't there again. He's so dependent on it. He's got to be. The bigger thing here also is, and Pete kind of mentioned this, that the way he's going to dominate, it's like talked about this. It's like, well, it's in pick and roll situations. And you know what the code is for that? It's if you have a bad pick and roll defense and somebody else does the work for him, AD can finish plays. Versus, and this is why I got frustrated with the talk about Joel Embiid, where Joel Embiid's like, well, I didn't get the ball when he had that terrible game 6. But he's like, well, I didn't get the ball enough. Does Nikola Jokic have that problem? No, because he brings the ball
right.
up the
Like
floor.
Shaq didn't have that problem. Hakeem didn't have that problem. Kareem didn't have that problem.
And that's, we talk about AD on that level. I don't blame, I'm trying to think of like a sub superstar player, but like at the big spot, like I don't blame them for not doing that because I don't expect them to be at that level. But if we're going to talk about AD like this, I'm sorry, but heavy's the crown. And that's the problem. And you're absolutely right. You cannot expect LeBron James to be the best player on this team. Like he deserves better from the franchise. And the guy that he personally plucked, chose, and dragged out of New Orleans, he deserves better from that guy than to have what he has on his shoulders because of that guy.
Yeah, to me, it always kind of goes back to talent, individual talent. Like there's like the thing that used to drive Kobe the most insane was seeing somebody with a whole bunch of talent who didn't live up to didn't take advantage of that talent, right? It's why he and Dwight Howard butted heads that entire season. And I think like with AD, he is one of the most talented players I have ever seen. One of the most talented players we may ever seen. We may ever see. He's a 7-footer who, when he was right, was moving around and jumping around like a small forward. I remember when he was that first year with the Lakers, Pete and I used to have conversations, and we used to say, like, you need to think of AD as like a big wing. Now it's like, because of the way he wants to play basketball now, it's like you have to think of him on offense as a lumbering center. And if you're a lumbering center and you can't shoot, you're really going to kind of struggle. And to me, like, I actually thought AD met the challenge to start last night's game. It actually meant like, Jokic was moving right through him, and there just isn't much AD is going to be able to do to stop Jokic from getting to a spot when Jokic just wants to back down, put his shoulder into him, and take him into the restricted area. There just isn't much AD is physically equipped with to stop that from happening. But I did think that at least on the other end, he was trying to turn the corner on Jokic. He did pick up 2 fouls on Jokic, and at various points, Jokic like had to give up baskets because he didn't want to pick up his third. You texted me that, hey, AD is falling on every one of these. I'm okay with that because that means he's at least trying to drive in and affect the game and take Jokic off of the court in some way. I'm fine with the falling there. But what can't happen is what happened in that second half where we're all looking around and, well, is it the Lakers guards' fault? Is it the creator's fault for not getting AD the ball? Well, where was the offensive rebounding then too, right? In the instances where AD did touch the ball, because it's not like he just never touched the ball in the second half. He wasn't being aggressive, in part because he made his first 3, he missed his next one, and then just like stopped shooting. And I think he always kind of battles with this notion of hyper efficiency, when I do think he would benefit from taking one extra mid-range jumper before he moves on from it and only considers himself a paint scorer. And I think, sometimes he can be really is his own worst enemy on offense. And it's so frustrating to watch. So somebody is so talented as that just kind of like take himself out of the game. And like you're talking about, and when we talk about the Lakers' expectations here moving forward, if LeBron is only going to be playing, 30 minutes and less, then that leaves 18 minutes of non-LeBron minutes in all of these games. That is a lot. And that's, by the way, in the 60 to 70 that he actually plays in this year. So, like, at some point, somebody else is going to have to fit that, fill that gap. And it should be like, this shouldn't even be a question. It should be that guy. It should be the pterodactyl. But every time he doesn't do it, we wind up, I wind up hearing excuse after excuse after excuse for him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
What? And like, and this is where you get frustrated with me as a Lakers fan, because we have been so blessed that like we have had stars that you just don't make excuses for.
Yeah.
And as soon as you hear those excuses, Lakers fans should be like, no, fuck that. We have higher expectations. And for some reason with AD, it's always, well, technically, and maybe, and it's like,
our guards,
no. like no, this guy is should be held to a much higher standard than he is.
The greatest players in the league don't have to have stuff spoon-fed for them.
Yeah.
And that's the reality with him, is everything.
It's basketball. Like basketball, at the end of the day, there's 4 other people on the court for your
team. And this is one of the things that people don't understand. If you give a lot of guys in the league easy opportunities, they're still not going to be elite. They're going to be good, but they're not going to be elite. Like if you give Wendell Carter Jr. wide open runs at the rim on pick and roll situations, like WCJ is going to have a really good game, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're going to have, but he's not going to have like an amazing, oh my God, incredible 40-point performance. That's not going to happen. Versus like if you have bad pick and roll defense, AD is going to have 40. He might have 50. But the difference there is with AD more than almost any other player, it's like only the good games exist.
Yeah.
And that's changing after the playoffs. Like it's changing after the Western Conference Finals. And then today you see a lot of the criticism for him. But that's important. And that's my thing. If we want to just say like, hey, AD is a second guy. Like he's just a second guy.
Which, by the way, is still like a really important thing, right? Yeah. Like we saw it with Scottie Pippen, right? Where he was equipped. He had all the tools where you would say like, okay, yeah, that guy probably could be the best player on a really good team. And then he was the best player on a team. And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You need the other guy, And I think AD is a lot closer to Scottie Pippen, where he is so well equipped to do all of these things. And then you just look, you're like, yeah, but he needs that other guy. He needs that other guy.
When he got traded to the Lakers, I asked somebody that has been close to the Pelicans for a lot of years, and I kind of asked him what he thought of the move, and he was like, it's perfect. He was like, because AD doesn't want to be the guy, and now he doesn't have to be. Like he gets all of the credit and none of the blame, because LeBron is the guy, and so LeBron will look at LeBron and what he's doing. Yeah. And that's shifted now though, because now it's like he's 39. And now it's and they just gave him the extension, and the Lakers and LeBron has knighted him as the face of the franchise. If that's the expectation on him, whether he wants it or not, if that's the expectation on him, then we have to hold him to that standard. It's not the AD, and again, I want to make this very clear too, because what'll happen, this happened last year where like I tweeted something about AD, and the overall disappointment, and then he has that good month where he plays really great. And then I get quote tweeted with like, how's that look now? And it's like, guys, he played better. And that's the thing. If AD plays better, I'm going to say, hey, he played better. He stepped up. And that's possible. Like AD can do that. He's talented enough. Mm-hmm. The other thing I will tell you is that that's
kind of part of the point though. Yeah. Like the part of the point here is that he is that kind of talented, and him stepping up only makes me sometimes more frustrated, because I'm like, where is this always?
Again, but
where like great players don't step up. But they're just great.
The key that you miss there is you miss when he steps up, because the same thing happens with Embiid, where if it's Oklahoma City on a Tuesday in January, Joel's playing and Joel's dominating. Is he playing Nikola Vucevic? 40 burger. Gonna put that on Instagram. Gonna tweet out the emoji. But what if it's Joker in Denver? I gotta kick a night off. I've been playing a lot. And that's not AD. AD is more of the dominates the Wizards. Good game versus someone else. Like that's the gap here, right? and the standard has to be like, no, you have to be awesome all the time. Consistency is really important for superstars.
Yeah.
And and part of this just maybe physically the AD is not there. Like I do want to say that it's impossible to watch AD and not be like, dude, that guy looks like it's a struggle physically. I'll say this, he doesn't look lazy to me. I'm not criticizing him for being lazy. I think he's trying, Jennifer, but I also think that it's difficult for him to move. The other thing I will say is being in the arena, like I think body language is a thing. LeBron came out in pregame warmups. They showed LeBron on the Jumbotron, and the crowd went ballistic booing him. It was the lowest percentage of Lakers fans I've ever seen at a Nuggets game. So congrats, Denver. For one time when you're celebrating a ring, you can have more fans in the arena on a Lakers night. But the booze came raining down, and LeBron puts a crown on his head real quickly and then goes back to his workout. And then starts off the game, and we were like up and down media row, and he had his first bucket.
Yeah.
Like,
holy crap.
Like, yeah, he means this one. And I kind of expected it because I was like, dude, he's never gonna be fresher than he is right now. Like, this is the freshest he's gonna be. This is the freshest and most motivated. 5 minutes into that game, LeBron stopped all of the stuff. No flexing, no pump fake, no sneers, nothing. He was just and I've seen this before from him enough. I know what it looks like when LeBron is playing in a game and he's like, yeah, we're going to lose this. They're way better. AD, on the other hand, I will say he just looks miserable with Jokic. Like, Jokic hits some and he's just like the shoulders drop. It's not possible. He's so used to dominating the easy stuff that when it's hard, it is a very big struggle for him. And that to me is like what's missing, is that you need a guy that's like, yeah, this is hard. I love it. It's so hard. This is great. Like Draymond Green, like waxes poetical about facing Jokic because he's like, he makes me better. Anthony Davis mopes about it. Yeah. And that difference I think is really important when you're defining one of the greatest players of the generation, supposedly, and the franchise leader for the Los Angeles Lakers.
What I will say, in fairness to Jokic or to AD and anybody really who has to defend Jokic, is defending Jokic looks like it sucks. Yeah. Because like it reminds me of Shaq. Like, it just reminds me, like, you just push and you shove and you try to get as low as you possibly can, and the whole time that you're pushing and you're shoving, you're going backwards. And like over the course of the game, you feel like you're like yelling into the void, like, hello. Like,
well, and the other thing here, again, when we talk about expectations, what was AD's excuse last night? Well, I was being double teamed. Okay.
Yeah.
You're really going to bring the idea that double teams are why you couldn't score more when you're facing Nikola Jokic, who is regularly triple teamed? Like, Jokic scores through doubles routinely. And if he doesn't, he sets up guys for passes where they convert. And AD's going to be, AD's like, well, we missed some shots. And it's like, find ways, move to the perimeter, go face up, and then pass out of that. And that was what was really funny, Anthony, is there was a sequence there in the second quarter where AD was trying to like honestly match and play like Jokic. Jokic drives past him and scores on him, muscles him through and scores on him. AD comes down and tries to do the same thing. He misses the bucket. Comes down at the other end. Jokic delivers a whip pass underneath for a bucket. AD, a couple possessions later, tries the same thing, and it's a turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I mean, it's just pay. Like, and that's again, I don't expect that stuff out of a second best player. I don't expect that stuff out of the second best player.
Mm-hmm.
But
he needs to be the best on this team.
For the Lakers to be the team that they want to be, for them to win the title and get LeBron that fifth title, he's going to have to be better. Period.
Yeah, the only disclaimer I would offer up, and I'm agreeing with you, I'm not fully disagreeing with you, is that like there are enough games in the regular season where AD can be the best player.
Yeah.
And it'll get them into the postseason, and hopefully LeBron is fresh enough that he can do it. It's just, it just feels, again, disrespectful, borderline, to say, "Hey, AD, please get LeBron to the playoffs," because that's when we know that he's going to have to be the more important guy. All right. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and you are here from the Action Network. You guys do incredible stuff on gambling and all of that. And I'm curious on your thoughts, either, micro and macro on the Lakers this year. The over under came in about a game lower than I thought it was going to. I think it came in at like 46.5 by the time last night started. I took the over, actually, given it was that low. And then beyond that, though, where do you stand on what the Lakers, or how people should approach betting on the Lakers this year?
For this last year, and it was a good call. I said that they're an extremes team. I actually gave out on our live show, Green Dot Daily. I said, look, I think you should bet two bets. You should bet the Lakers over, and you should bet them to miss the playoffs, not the under, because you get much better value on that. And late in the season last year, I said you should bet them to miss the playoffs when they were battling in the play-in. I was like, you should bet them to miss the playoffs and win the title. And we got them to a conference final, so I could bet heavily against them in that series.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you look for these opportunities where you've built a position and can go the other way based off of what cap you think, or double down in those certain situations. Market consensus on the win total 2 weeks ago was 47.3. It got bet down a little bit. You're right. In some spots at 46.5. The market consensus was 47.3. I have them at 47.8. That's where I think they wind up this season. Factoring everything, trying to figure out what a good number for them is difficult just because of the injury stuff. They've averaged 35 games per season with LeBron and AD together over the past 3 seasons, 35 games. The margin should be much better. I think, like last night, that's maybe one of the things that you're a little worried about, is you felt really good before last night's game about the games where one of them misses. And now I will say that, like, I don't know, like I'm a little bit more worried. We'll see. I'm a little bit more worried about the games where LeBron sits, if AD's got to be the guy. And it depends on the matchup, though, right? It depends if they're facing, like, are they facing the Celtics without LeBron, or are they facing the Hornets without LeBron?
Yeah.
Are they facing the Bulls without AD, or are they facing Phoenix without AD?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't know how you felt about the Bulls.
And so I think that there's, like, all these different ways. I will probably look to fade them if I have a power rating advantage of, because some of this is, you take the number that you've got and then you compare it, and then you do the cap in terms of the matchups. I will look for spots where, if they're facing a big team, I am really worried about the size. They're just not physical enough in the backcourt. And that's a weird thing to say, but it is kind of a thing in the league now where there's so much athleticism. If they're facing a team that's got a lot of size, I think I'm probably going to lean a little bit against them. When they're facing small teams, I'm going to hammer them. Like, after Memphis lost Steven Adams, love that matchup again for them. Like, this is a great matchup now. Without Steven Adams, that's a great matchup for them. When they're facing bigger teams, I'll probably go the other way, because I think that those are games where Reaves is going to struggle a little bit. And if Reaves isn't good, I think that their ability to get separation goes way down. There's also things that will change my mind on this. Again, if Darvin goes to, hey, we're just going to, like, handcuff D'Angelo to LeBron, and we're going to give Reaves some stagger minutes at the second unit, I'll like that more. I love the Taurean Prince pickup. He was so good last night, and he's going to be great for them. Like, he's just going to be good. I'm not worried about Rui. Rui had, like, a weird game, but in general, I think Rui's going to be good again this season. They'll look good in various spots. I have them, like, again, I have them pretty strongly power rated, especially in the West, where everybody's really kind of truncated. They're in a group with a bunch of those teams. There are downsides here where it's one of the things is just, I get this pushback from fans where I'll say, like, look, if things go sideways, they go really sideways here. And fans will go, okay, but who's that? That's true for everyone. I'm like, yeah, but the percentage chances are different. I'm less worried about health with the Nuggets, because all their guys, their starting 5 is all under 30. That helps. Like, my injury concerns for them are less. Doesn't mean that they can't get hurt, but it's less. Versus with the Lakers, that it's the percentage chance that they get injured and what happens if they do. Because there are teams that are built with redundancies in place to survive injuries. Less so this season. Like Milwaukee and Boston at the top of the Eastern Conference, both of those teams are extremely delicate. If
Yeah.
one guy gets hurt, it's like, oh boy, I don't know what this looks like. And you saw it with the Warriors last night. They're that way too. No Draymond, and like there were times they looked pretty pathetic. So
Yeah.
that's the good news for the Lakers is like everybody I think is a little bit more fragile under the new CBA. But I do think that night to night, I will be looking for Taurean Prince 3-point props. And I will absolutely love the Lakers. I think in home games versus bad opponents are the ones where I want to bet them. And if you're just like, that seems obvious. Well, no, because the Lakers deal with an inflation of their market lines pretty routinely. They're a very public team.
That's why I was so surprised over the over-under coming in as low as it did. I thought for sure I was prepared to bet unders, because I thought it would come in closer to, but I think the market basically looked at everything that's going on in the West, and I think all of the over-unders in the West are lower than you would have expected. And half of those teams are going to have to hit those unders. So it's, we'll really see how that turns out. But yeah, I'm with you 100% against smaller teams. The games against good teams is going to be interesting because with here's a out of left field theory that I have. The league is trying to work out their next media deal, right?
Yeah.
And a big part of those conversations are going to be about guys missing teams and stuff like that. And what that does to the media. Like it was funny that like right away Bradley Beal just misses. It's like, whoops, sorry everybody. Yep. But I kind of have been wondering with LeBron wanting to own a team and the impact that a good media deal would have on his, the value of the thing that he owns next. If he's just like never going to miss any of these national games against good teams, and if he doesn't miss any of those games, I like their chances in those spots, but we'll see.
Well, I'll tell you is I got a sense this summer, and nothing that's like concrete, like no, like yes, there was a meeting, yes, it was contentious. I got the sense that a lot of the conversations in players association meetings and just among the players has been of we got to get this right, guys. I think that there's a league probably not mandate, but I think the league probably conveyed to the NBPA guys, we're negotiating the media deal. We got to fix, like, it's a problem in these negotiations. Like we have ESPN being like, why are we paying for these games if none of your players are playing?
Yeah.
And it's not
shortly
even
thereafter, you get the research that indicates rest doesn't help. With that stuff.
And I will say there was a lot of cynicism about that, and I get it. It's funny to relate that. Vivek Brown and Yves kind of mentioned this. The Kings don't load manage. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons they don't is like they have alluded to the idea of like they're like, we don't believe that it actually helps based off of the research we've done. We don't think it helps.
Yeah.
And they won a ton of games last year. Now they're young, and that changes things. I do think though that there has been a collective. That's why the stuff with Draymond being out, he had a legit injury. I understand why. Like he was not in condition to play in that game. And Beal had a legit injury too. Like he tweaked his back, and you don't want to mess around with a guy over 30 who hurts his back. Yeah. It's just a bummer that like
so weird. He's available tomorrow.
It's weird. Well, it's also especially weird that the thing I would have done is whoever leaked it should have been like what they want to do is like, oh, don't worry, Brad's not really hurt. But what they should have been like is like, yeah, Brad's experiencing back tightness and can't go, versus the Suns out of an extreme caution. Because once you say that, you're like, oh, so we're being cautious.
So
again.
He technically could go.
He could have played, is what you're telling me. Just be like, no, he's hurt. He's out. I think that we'll see less of the games where it's like, yeah, he needs a night off. That I think we're going to see a lot less of. I think it's going to be a really good season in terms of the competitiveness. I think it's going to be a really good season. Like last night's environment was amazing. It was like that game started, and I will say, I understand pretty routinely the idea of like the Nuggets are not a historic rival for the Lakers and will never be so because they have 17 championships and the Nuggets have 1. Mm-hmm. I will say those teams don't like each other.
Yeah, they
yeah. And they played like it. Both teams. And honestly, I kind of credit LeBron with this. LeBron kind of came out and like hit them early. And if you watch Jokic just kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. If this is we're not easing into the season. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And we were off. So it was a really great environment. I think it's gonna be really good this season.
Yeah, we don't have time, I don't think, to talk about it, but I do really legitimately like the amount of shit talking that both of these organizations are perfectly fine doing about each other. You
Yeah.
know, whether it's a passive aggressive, it doesn't matter.
I mean,
I want more.
You should want the Nuggets to talk more shit because I think you need some more conversations with AD to get him.
I think it's just one conversation between LeBron and AD, and it was like, "Where were you? Where'd you go? Like, what? Were you at Red Rocks? Who's playing there now?"
I will say this is. I mean, finally, a big part of my column is what would LeBron's reaction or the public reaction be if Chris Bosh or Kevin Love had these types of performances?
Well, didn't he? I mean, he was subtweeting Kevin Love for like stretches of the year, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget to fit out.
That's
Or
why I don't
fit out,
understand.
fit in, da, da, da.
And hey, find
Those
yourself.
guys weren't clutch though.
Find yourself exactly.
All right. On that note, thank you very much, Matt, for hopping on. Anything to plug before we get you out of here?
We've got all sorts of stuff on Action Network. I've got columns up. I'm sure you want to read about AD, but if you also want to read about, we've got picks up on the daily, our betting podcast buckets. We've got win total descriptions for all 30 teams coming up. We've got all sorts of great stuff. We'll cover it throughout the season, as well as great awards coverage. Check out the actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app.
Thank you very much, Matt. It is always a pleasure to read the comment section where I am finally the popular one on my show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's why you have me on here. Is every time you take too much heat, you bring me on.
Like, I promise I can be way worse.
Yeah, so that everybody's like, oh, Anthony's pretty good. This guy fucking sucks. So